Lastly, I've got Brad's Les Paul Standard here. This will be getting a set of those ratio tuners, a compensated nut, and it looks like it needs a proverbial fret dress at the neck junction. That's kind of how I set up on the tech deck when I'm working on machine heads to correct these CNC jobs more often than not. I am going to re-crown buff these to a mirror shine, and you'll get a play-by-play. What I use is Jeweler's Rouge. So it's just a compound. You can get it at automotive stores. A stick like that, you know, for $5 would last me like 3 months. We basically have a canvas wheel here. I use this 110-degree die grinder. If you have air tools, it's a good tool to have. But this can be done with a drill. I'm going to load that up with the compound. And now we're ready to buff. So the angle of the buffer is like this. I adjust this air tool so that if I push down on the fingerboard, the actual wheel will stop. The other thing that you have to watch is on the Les Paul, as everybody knows, you have these little plastic nibs and plastic binding. Don't linger on the plastic because you will melt it. If you keep the buffer moving at the optimum pace, there's no danger to the plastic binding at all. So here's a little bit different camera angle on this. When I turn this on, if I push down, it'll stop. You don't want infinite torque. This is real time. The rate at which I'm polishing. I'll probably speed up the video in a second just sort of get through the job. But what you're watching right now is real time. This is the rate at which I move across the fret with the buffer. You can feel the buffer kind of grab and polish the frets. You want just enough traction to polish those frets to a mirror shine. Okay, we'll clean off that compound. If you notice, we have masked off the inlay because this is actually plastic inlay on this. For those of you that are using a buffer like this for the first time, you want to make sure you're erring on the side of caution. Okay, at this point I just hiked the guitar up so I can get at that masking tape. So this is the finish that we're after. So that part of the job is done. We still have to do our compensated nut and install those ratio tuners, and there's a little bit of work to do on the bridge here. A little bit more play in there than I'd like to see. Okay, we put a little bit of Teflon tape on those threads of the thumb wheel bridge posts just to kind of tighten it up, and now we've got a good solid press fit. No wiggling, no jiggling, rock solid. Okay, now we're going to switch back to orientation for installing the machine heads. Okay, for you guys that are new to the ratio tuners, we're just going to kind of zero in here and explain what's going on. So they give you a selection of these plates that are used on the back of the headstock so that you don't have to drill. So we're picking out the appropriate plate. These are the 6 plates we're going to use. Because these tuners have actually been swapped out from original one time before, previously, there's a couple of little holes that are exposed. We're just going to put a little bit of low heat burn-in stick. Just fill those in before we put those plates on. As you saw earlier, the body is held. I'm not worried for a second about the guitar slipping or slopping around or being crushed. It's held in the most advantageous position to let me approach the work with a calm and relaxed focus. So these things are installed loosely now, and in this case it's good you have those indexing plates because the previous install of the replacement to the other replacement tuners, though the holes were a little bit rough. So this really helps to line everything up. You know, we just pin that plate down where the original casting would have been. Sorry I didn't show you on the underside, but there are two little indexing pins on the casting that index into the two forward holes on the plate. Okay, we'll flip that over and get to work on this compensated nut. You've seen me do this compensated nut thing, and I've really put some thought into how can I get you guys on board with this. Obviously, this is another Les Paul that I'm doing a compensated nut for. 6 Les Paul compensated nuts in the last week or so. So what I'm offering exclusively to my Patreon subscribers and my grad students is this Corian package. So what we've got here is we've got 2 strips of Corian. Each strip yields 5 compensated nut blanks. After giving this a lot of thought, instead of cutting them to an approximate length, I thought with the strip you're way better off. You just cut off the nut blanks as you need them. The way I've priced this out is basically $5 per blank. That's what it works out to. So this package here gives you 10 nut blanks for 50 bucks or 22 nut blanks for 100 bucks. I'm going to be putting together a very detailed video that is going to be exclusive to you guys on Patreon that walks you through step by step. As I've said so many times before, the compensated nut thing is a moving target. It depends on the scale length, the gauge of string, the tuning. All of these things matter. In my level 2 classes, I took 3-hour classes to go through all the permutations and variations on making a perfect compensated nut. So what I'm offering to my Patreon subscribers and my grad students is a video package and compensated nut blanks that really help you fast track this job. The fact that the cross-sectional nut profile is actually larger than you'd ever need, it allows you to do any guitar on the planet with this one profile of compensated nut blank. Here we go, here's the tuners. Watch how the string reacts and how smoothly the tuner lines up with this. So each string has its own gear ratio. Brad has this guitar tuned to C, G, C, F, A, D. Here's our C. Machining on these heads is beautiful. Here's our open string and first fret fretted note. Okay, here's a complete detailed rundown of this whole job. So let's start at the tailpiece. So we went with a wraparound tailpiece. The reason we did that is the 2 outside strings were deflecting off the casting at the back of the bridge. By having that wraparound, that gave us the clearance we need. So the strings are not touching the back of the bridge. They go directly from the wraparound to the focal point on the saddle all the way across. Okay, next. The pickups were a little bit too close and you could see the tuner wavering when I went to tune it up. To get an accurate read on the proximity of the strings to the magnets, you need to hold down the last note. That's as close as the string is ever going to get to the pickups. So you need to have 3/32 to 1/8 of an inch clearance at that point. Next, as you saw earlier in the video, very, very light fret dress, but pretty intense polishing to bring those crowns perfectly back to center. Next, of course, we did our compensated nut. For all the Patreon subscribers and grad students, if you guys are interested in me really walking you through this in super detail, please let me know. I'm putting a package together that'll allow you enough compensated nut blanks to do either 10 or 22 guitars, and then I'll walk you through the variations. Now, this is a good example because this guitar is tuned to C, G, C, F, A, D. So the compensation for this nut is different than it would be for another tuning. The other thing is, this goes from 11 to 54, these strings. Obviously going to be in a much different place than 9 to 42. And that's it for now. Let me know if you're interested in this whole compensated nut thing. We'll put together a package for you. Well, as always, the real acid test is playing chords.